大家好，欢迎收看《时事金扫描》，我是金然，请订阅我们的频道支持我们，点赞、留言，并且推荐转发。这两天在瑞士的达沃斯上演了一场世纪大戏。为什么说它是大戏呢？全球大约3000位最高等级的政商名流齐聚，其中超过60位是国家元首和政府首脑，还有将近的850位全球顶级的 CEO 和董事长出席。但不管多少精英人物出现在达沃斯论坛，主角只有一个，那就是一举一动都牵动了全球神经的美国总统川普。而川普去达沃斯论坛，在我看来，那就是去砸场子的，要砸的就是全球主义的假面具。俗话说好事多磨。川普的达沃斯之行在一开始就充满了戏剧性，一件极不寻常的事情发生了。川普的空军1号在飞往瑞士达沃斯的10000米高空的时候，突然间掉头了。刚飞出去不久，这可是配备了最尖端的安全系统和最严格检测检修流程的飞机。官方后来给出的理由是轻微电力故障，听起来是风轻云淡，但这背后恐怕没那么简单。根据随行记者的描述，当时这个飞机正在高空平稳的飞行，突然媒体舱的这个灯光闪烁了一下，然后就都灭了。虽然只有短暂的几秒钟，但那种压抑的气氛瞬间就笼罩了整个的飞机。这架代表美国国力的总统座驾，竟然在关键时刻掉链子了。更让人起疑的是，飞机返回安德鲁斯空军基地后这个安保的级别是最高警戒。川普几乎是在着陆的第一时间就被转移到了备用的一个称作 C-32 飞机上，它是给美国副总统的专机。川普的这一次达沃斯行程安排的那是严丝合缝，突然这么返航将耽误在达沃斯论坛上的演讲。因此 C-32 专机是火速出发，成为了川普和达沃斯精英们在还没有直接对阵之前的一次无声的博弈。川普飞往达沃斯论坛，虽然在一开始受阻，但还是按期到达了这个公认的全球主义的大本营，也是世界经济论坛的所在地。在过去几年里那些人可是把川普骂的是体无完肤。如今，川普来了。川普是乘坐海军陆战队1号直升机到达的会场。达沃斯论坛的主办者特意铺设了长长的红地毯，那些背后对川普指手画脚的人，竟然排起了长队，等着跟他握手合影。这就是现实主义的政治。尽管他们心里10000个不愿意，但谁也无法忽视这个大讲美国优先和他们唱对台戏的真正的强者。说到达沃斯这帮精英咱们还得聊聊这次达沃斯论坛场外的2大黑色幽默。这2天，达沃斯这个小地方居然停了超过1000架次的私人飞机，搭载着2-3千名的精英在此地是高谈阔论，什么气候变化什么拯救地球。 他们是一边一本正经地告诉全世界的老百姓说，你们今年冬天要把这个暖气关小点啊，室温能到13°C，冻不死就好了。你们要少吃肉，最好去吃那个人造肉。你们不要开燃油车啊，最好骑自行车。而另一边，平均他们3、4个人就乘坐一架私人飞机，排放着数千吨的二氧化碳。而川普这次去就是冲着这帮伪君子，不但要彻底砸了全球主义、气候变迁主义的场子，还得好好的收一下他们的保护费。另一个我发现的黑色幽默啊，就是达沃斯山上立了一块巨大的灯光显示牌，在这里上写着 "No Kings"， 不要国王。这明显啊是针对川普抗议的。但讽刺的是啊，此次达沃斯会场里面就正坐着欧洲的7位国王，而川普之前因为格陵兰岛的问题威胁要给那8个欧洲国家加征关税，这8个国家里有5个就是君主制的国家，这也让这块不要国王的牌子要多好笑有多好笑。根据传统韩医学原理，肺为5脏6腑之首，鼻炎、哮喘、皮肤过敏和重症肺病皆源自肺部积热。扁康疗法是从根本上解决肺部以及整个呼吸系统的问题。扁康丸由20多味药用食材制成，问世50多年来，已经使全球超过16万人恢复健康。请点击影片下面说明中的链接，登录扁康丸官网，中文、粤语、英语24小时免费咨询服务，全球免费邮寄。今年的达沃斯世界经济论坛是从1月19号到1月23号，一共5天。但川普呢，只在昨天和今天待2天。但就是这2天，川普干成了2件彻底改变全球战略和地缘政治的大事儿。就在川普到达达沃斯的当天，传出最震撼的消息，川普亲自官宣说，基于我和北约秘书长吕特举行的一次极具成效的会晤，我们已就格陵兰乃至整个北极地区的未来协议框架达成了共识。此方案得以落实的话，将对美国及所有北约成员国产生重大利好。基于此项谅解，我将暂缓原定2月1号生效的那个关税惩罚措施。关于格陵兰相关事项，目前正就黄金穹顶战略防御计划进行进一步的磋商，随谈判的进展将发布更多的资讯。外界想到了川普会使用这种极限施压、求上得中的招数，但谁也没有想到川普这次的招是使绝了。外界原本以为啊，川普是想拿几万亿美元去买下格陵兰，结果川普最后玩成了什么？不花钱还要办大事儿的开挂的路数。据多家西方媒体透露，川普不但拿下格陵兰，连北极也一并拿到手。川普上面说的这个未来协议框架达成共识呢，一共有多达6条的共识。首先是什么？美国将取得格陵兰的多块小块的土地的控制权，用来搭建这个黄金穹顶导弹防御系统和相应的美军基地。注意看这张地图啊，这个整个的这个黄色的虚线就是北极圈，那么这里呢是格陵兰岛，这儿是阿拉斯加，美国本土在这里，这儿呢是俄罗斯。红色，大家看到这个红色的三角的这个标志呢，就是在阿拉斯加的这个美军军事基地的地点。 可以看到这儿还有一个，也就是说在格陵兰岛上本来就有一个美军的军事基地，而蓝色的这些圆点，注意看，沿着北极大量的俄罗斯的军事基地。我估计啊，美国最后会得到哪儿呢？格陵兰北部，也就是这儿沿线的，应该能得到几块不同的小的土地呢，建基地。重点是啊，川普表示他拿到了土地，但之前传出啊，要拿出来的那个7000亿美元这下是1分钱都不花了。你丹麦既然要面子，好啊，让你保住主权，但钱就不给了。而川普只看这个里子是否是他的。有人可能想啊，没彻底拿下领土那不保险啊，人家可以随时收回来啊。重点是什么？协议的这个期限设定为，注意看这儿，是设定为无限期。什么意思呢？就是说美国将在格陵兰岛的北极地区钉下几颗永久的钉子，拥有了进入整个北极圈的权限。不但如此，美国将获得参与格陵兰矿产开发的权利。6项协议的框架条款中啊，还有非常重要的一条，也就是最后这一条是什么呢？是要阻断俄罗斯和中共在格陵兰的影响力。而美国1分钱不花拿到了想要的东西之后呢，川普需要做的只是什么？宣布他前2天口头上宣布的那个啊，原定2月1号生效的用关税制裁欧洲8国的措施是暂时不执行了。大家现在应该看明白了什么叫做川普的交易艺术了吧？
Well, I'm not going to have to pay anything. We're going to have total access to Greenland. We're going to have all military access that we want. We're going to be able to put what we need on Greenland because we want it. We're talking about national security and international security. So we're going to not have to pay anything other than the fact that we are building the Golden Dome, and the Golden Dome is going to be something that's going to be very amazing. It'll be Israel times probably 100. And we need it. I think we need it. And it's all going to be made in the United States. We have the best weapons in the world. We have the best companies in the world. We want them to produce faster. And, we've put a mandate out. You're going to have to produce faster, whether it's the Patriots or the Tomahawks or the F-35s or anything else. We make the best equipment, but they have to make it a lot faster.
川普到达达沃斯的第1天，就让北约就格陵兰岛问题站在了美国一边。如果说我的分析啊还是比较个人化的话，那么对世界很多重大事件预测非常准的那个知名的赌盘叫 Polymarket， 今天呢发出了最新的预测。2026年美国获得格陵兰岛的几率已经从1个月前的12%，在1天之内飙升到了55%。川普昨天一到达沃斯，就是一副拼命三郎的架势，一下飞机就发表了一场长达1个多小时的演讲，随后马不停蹄地前往记者会，接着又分别和世界各国领袖会面。达沃斯论坛简直就成了川普的个人秀场了。有意思的是啊，他抛出的几颗重磅炸弹，直接炸裂了地缘政治的旧格局。川普这次在达沃斯对拥有格陵兰主权的丹麦翻老账啊，毫不客气地指出说，2战的时候，你丹麦只抵抗了希特勒6个小时，就向德国投降了。川普的意思很明确啊，你一个连自己都保不住的国家，凭什么说你能保卫格陵兰呢？川普直截了当地戳破了欧洲的玻璃心。所谓的主权尊严，在绝对的实力差距和国家生存的面前，如果沦为了中俄战略导弹下的软肋的话，那就是对全球安全的不负责任。在讲话中，川普还揭露出2战中啊，是美军保卫了格陵兰，并且在战后无条件地交还格陵兰给丹麦的这个历史事实。
We saw this in World War II. When Denmark fell to Germany, after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled, we did it, we felt an obligation to do it, to send our own forces to hold the Greenland territory, and hold it we did at great cost and expense. They didn't have a chance of getting on it, and they tried. Denmark knows that. We literally set up bases on Greenland for Denmark. We fought for Denmark. We weren't fighting for anyone else. We were fighting to save it for Denmark. Big, beautiful piece of ice. It's hard to call it land. It's a big piece of ice. But we saved Greenland and successfully prevented our enemies from gaining a foothold in our hemisphere. So we did it for ourselves also. And then after the war, which we won it big. Without us, right now you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now?
最精彩的爆料啊，来自川普提到中共和俄罗斯新式武器在委内瑞拉的翻车现场。据传，当时委内瑞拉部署了号称能锁定美军战机的俄罗斯制和中国制的防御系统。结果呢，川普在达沃斯啊，像讲笑话似的，讲出了下面的故事。
2 weeks ago, they saw weapons that nobody ever heard of. They weren't able to fire one shot at us. They said, what happened? Everything was discombobulated. They said, we've got them in our sights. Press the trigger, and nothing happened. No anti-aircraft missiles went up. There was one that went up about 30 feet and crashed down right next to the people that sent it. They said, what the hell is going on? Those defensive systems were made by Russia and by China. So they're going to go back to the drawing boards, I guess. Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory that's sitting undefended in a key strategic location between the United States, Russia, and China. That's exactly where it is, right smack in the middle.
川普在达沃斯一针见血地告诉西方各国，什么欧洲能自保的这个幻觉啊，得醒醒了。芬兰总统呢，刚在论坛上说欧洲不需要美国保护，被记者是一追问，11分钟之内啊，他自己就改口了。现实就是这么残酷的，是啪啪打脸。
First is a direct answer to the question of this panel: Can Europe defend itself? My answer is unequivocally yes.
Without the Americans?
Without the Americans, I mean,
how?
Well, look.
But you're relying on them for these key elements. You've said earlier that Europe can defend itself without the Americans. If it comes down,
not exact, Mike. So that's not a quote.
More or less. More or less.
Let's.
We'll go back to the transcript.
Let's stick to the left on this one, yeah?
More or less. More or less.
I love journalists.
Stoop against this.
But
也许是芬兰总统的尴尬和失言，让边上的北约秘书长都看不下去了。于是，北约秘书长吕特说了一番发自肺腑又让西方领袖们深思的话。
I'm not popular with you now because I'm defending Donald Trump, but I really believe we can be happy that he is there because he has forced us in Europe to step up, to face the consequences, that we have to take care more of our own defense. And here's my question to the audience. I mean, many of you, I know, criticize Donald Trump. But do you really think that without Donald Trump, 8 big economies in Europe, including Spain and Italy and Belgium, Canada, by the way, also outside Europe, would have come to 2% in 2025 when they were only on 1.5% at the beginning of the year? No way. Without Donald Trump, this would never have happened. They're all on 2% now. Do you really think that in the summit in The Hague, as already Alex was saying, the president of Finland was saying, that we would come to an overall defense spending of 5%, including 3.5% in core defense, if President Trump would not have been re-elected as president of the United States? No way. It would never have happened.
其实啊，看不惯欧洲各国虚伪的还不只是川普， 连一向动不动就找他们开会的乌克兰的总统泽连斯基也忍无可忍了。在昨天的达沃斯论坛上，泽连斯基非常少见的痛批欧洲国家嘴上一套，行动又是另一套。
Europe loves to discuss the future, but avoids taking action today, action that defines what kind of future we will have. That is the problem. Why can't President Trump stop tankers from the Shadow Fleet and seize oil, but Europe doesn't? Russian oil is being transported right along European shores. That oil funds the war against Ukraine. That oil helps destabilize Europe. So Russian oil must be stopped and confiscated and sold for Europe's benefit.
也许是川普针针见血的讲话，以及北约秘书长的痛说家事啊，让西方官僚们是稍微清醒了一些。本来对川普颇有微词的德国总理也开始反思自己了，竟然在昨天承认了德国和欧洲浪费了自己的潜力，实际上等同于承认了欧洲体系的失败。
We are aware of those problems. Both Germany and Europe have wasted incredible potential for growth in recent years by dragging feet on reforms and unnecessarily and excessively curtailing entrepreneurial freedoms and personal responsibility. We are going to change that now. Security and predictability take precedence over excessive regulation and misplaced perfection. We must reduce bureaucracy substantially in Europe. The single market was once created to form the most competitive economic area in the world, but instead, we have become the world champion of over-regulation. That has to end.
如果说在达沃斯论坛上，川普对只讲政治正确却不干实事的西方各国还是恨铁不成钢似的敲打，那么在谈到当年美国经济受挫的原因时，川普首次提到了当年疫情期间，美国的卫星拍到了中国武汉到处都是装着尸体的裹尸袋。
I was told to stay tuned because there's something really bad happening in China. There are bodies laying all over Wuhan, right around that certain building that we talk about. I always said it came from Wuhan. It did come from Wuhan. And they were body bags. We saw it by satellite. And they said, there are strange things happening in China. And so it began. And we ended up with the COVID and the whole world suffered.
川普在达沃斯一共2天，第一天基本搞定了格陵兰问题，那么第2天的重头戏就是川普正式成立了和平委员会，一个在我看来未来将取代联合国的大型国际组织。1月22号，全球政治版图发生强震，和平委员会是横空出世。它是川普对现有全球治理体系的一次推倒重建，是在重新定义全球秩序。这个和平委员会是从何而来的呢？原来川普对联合国、北约等传统的这种多边机构的烧钱、没效率、只会空谈是早就看不惯了。世界各地的冲突，特别是加沙之乱，联合国的官员们往往是什么？发表一下措辞强硬的声明，然后呢就没有然后了。于是一个大胆的计划在川普的脑中就成型了，建立一个高效实干的平台。这个委员会的雏形最早是出现在他和中东、东欧领导人的几次私人的会晤中。川普的核心逻辑是什么？和平不是求来的，而是靠实力谈出来的，更是靠实力压出来的。他要建立一个由行动派领导人组成的圈子，绕过联合国直接拍板。川普呢，借着世界经济论坛这个平台，为和平委员会举行了加冕礼。目前已经有59个国家签署了协议，加入和平委员会。 国务卿卢比奥在成立大会上公开抨击那些只会照本宣科、空谈和平的世界领导人们。
Just a board of peace, this is a board of action. Just like President Trump is a president of action. A lot of times people like to give speeches. I've been to many of these forums, and they're not useless, and they're not, they have utility in many cases. But oftentimes in international affairs, we often find ourselves at events where people are reading these scripted statements, these strongly worded letters that they put out, but no action. Nothing happens. This is a group of leaders that are about action. And the President of the United States is a president of action, of getting things done. And today is the beginning of that, of a new era and a new stage that we think is so important as a model to the rest of the world of what is possible.
和平委员会啊，没有联合国的什么轮值主席啊，什么五常否决权啊，它的章程写得非常直白，唯一的主席就是川普。主席拥有绝对的否决权，甚至可以不经过委员会咨询，直接发布决议。而且呢，主席的职位任期不受美国总统任期的限制，为终身制。只有在自愿辞职或者丧失能力的情况下，经过执行委员会一致通过才能更换。说白了，和平委员会主席就是川普从美国总统位置下来以后，仍然可以发挥巨大影响力的地方。川普设计了一个层级分明、效率优先的3级架构，把政治决策、外交行政和地面执行完全剥离开来。和平委员会决策层呢，是由受邀的国家元首组成，目前呢就是59个国家参与，负责审核大的框架、预算和长远的目标。首期3年加入呢是免费的，但想要获得常任的成员国身份，就要每个国家捐献10亿美元作为入会费。这就是川普的商业逻辑了。想在世界舞台有发言权，请先拿钱来。而行政层级呢，也就是执行委员会，相当于整个组织的大脑，由川普亲自点将。现在呢，是由美国国务卿卢比奥，有川普的女婿库什纳，还有这个世界银行行长以及前英国首相布莱尔。而第3层是执行层，也就是加沙执行委员会，负责落地的落实计划。令外界惊讶的是，俄罗斯总统普京也在邀请之列。当记者问说：“你既然担心普京入侵格陵兰，为什么还请他入会？”的时候，川普给出了直率的回答。他说：“我想让所有国家都参与。”这就是典型的川普式外交，把敌人也拉进自己的游戏规则里。这个委员会当下名义上是为了解决中东，特别是加沙冲突而建立的，但本质上它是川普绕过传统多边体系，建立一个以美国或者说白点以川普自己为中心的新世界的议事厅。最新消息，川普已经在1月22号当天从瑞士的达沃斯返回美国。川普发帖表示说，格陵兰岛的建设计划正在推进，这对美国而言将是惊人的成就，而和平理事会将是世界前所未见的创举，极其特别，诸多美事正在发生。好了，这一次的时事金扫描就聊到这儿，需要您持续的支持，订阅我们的频道，点赞留言，并且推荐转发给其他人。如果愿意在资金上直接支持我们，就更加感谢了。我们下期节目时间再会。